I know that it is, the very beginning of January and one would expect cold weather, but it is going to be pretty unusually icy and snowy.
Yes, it's led to some amber warnings for large parts of England and Wales this weekend. Hazardous travel conditions if you're getting on the road, so do be careful if you're heading out and about.
Now, the severe warnings cover at the moment Northern England, the Midlands, much of Wales from 6 o'clock tonight until midnight on Sunday.
Well, this comes after temperatures fell in some places to as low as -8 yesterday. And so for a lot of us, it was the coldest night of the winter so far.
Well, to tell us how best to stay safe on the roads, let's join motoring expert Fraser Brown. Hello, Fraser. I guess it's a bit like I think the authorities were saying, if you don't need to go out, don't go out. And I guess that's ultimately the best warning for motorists, isn't it?
Absolutely. If you don't need to travel during what we've got coming up in terms of the snow and the cold and the ice, then absolutely do not travel will be the number one piece of advice. If, however, it's absolutely essential that you do travel, then I think it's really important that you prepare not only your vehicle from a safety perspective, but you also prepare yourself and the contents of that vehicle to be prepared for extended stay within the vehicle. If you're stuck on a motorway, it's not always about your driving, it can often be about other people's driving and the consequences of being stuck in those environments behind barriers on a motorway. But it's also about preparing and protecting your vehicle, because if your vehicle is not fully prepared for the weather, you can also end up with extensive damage to it. So, for example, if your coolant does not have antifreeze in it, then you can end up with things like cracked blocks. More than a third of vehicles on the road wouldn't pass an MOT test, and we often see vehicles coming into the garages that we work with no tread on their tyres, or even worse, down to the cords showing through the material that sits underneath the tyres. And if you've not got tread on your tyres in road conditions like we can see on the screen at the moment, then you can find that the vehicle simply just does not want to stop, because there's nowhere for the snow, water or ice that sits between the road and the tyres to go. So you end up with very little adhesion.
I tell you what always strikes me at this time of year is, why don't we have skid training in this country? Because everyone says, oh, you steer into a skid and all the rest of it. I wouldn't know if I was skidding what direction to steer in or not, and it would be a really useful skill, wouldn't it?
I think the key thing that we do, certainly when we're launching vehicles for car manufacturers, is we take people from car dealerships onto roads like Millbrook, which is a massive off-road complex where we can do various testing. We do a lot of skid testing in those environments and show people how to handle vehicles when they're kind of in what we call a skid pan, which is a water-based low adhesion surface. But yes, ultimately, most vehicles these days have got ABS. So another thing that's really important that you have maintained on your vehicle is your brakes, and that all four brakes are working. We often find when we test brakes on an environment or an MOT test that the front brakes work really well and the back brakes can often be very inefficient. So making sure your brakes, your tyres, and that your coolant, your antifreeze, your washer fluid is all in as it should be with the vehicle will make a huge difference to the safety of the passengers within that car. But yeah, in terms of ABS, these days, ABS will not allow all of the wheels on the vehicle to lock. So that enables you to maintain better control of the steering. So when the vehicle's wheels lock up because there's no adhesion with the road, the ABS will release those vehicles, release the wheels. And when those wheels are released, it regains some traction to enable you to steer and control the direction of the vehicle. So things have moved on a little bit, but yes, turning into a skid is a great way of regaining traction if all four wheels lock up and the vehicle believes it's stationary, which does happen sometimes.
Oh. But I guess, isn't it true that if you kept your speed down, you completely lessen the idea of skidding at all? So it's about, in this weather, I mean, if you find it amazing, even in this weather, people speed past you at unbelievable speeds. And you think, why are they doing that? In this weather, you don't know what you're going to come up against next.
It's about anticipating a lot further in advance because your ability to stop is reduced. Stopping distances can be up to 10 times further in the icy conditions because you put your foot on the brakes. If it's over ice, then you simply do not stop. So if you're able to be looking much further ahead on the road, looking at what's going on far further ahead than you would normally look, and going an awful lot more, reducing your speed, being more cautious, lowering the speed, and anticipating what's going on ahead in the road. Other things that you can do as well are use your gears to slow down. So if you've got plenty of distance between you and the vehicle in front, then you can use gears to slow down. Gears often get you a lot better traction than hitting the brakes. And just being more gentle in everything you do with the vehicle as you travel will end up in a place where you get far less reactional shocks from the vehicle not doing as you're expecting it to do because yeah, certainly I've got teenage children that have recently passed their tests, and the first thing I always say to them before they go on the road is slow down and don't expect the vehicle to do what you think it's going to do, because when you've got ice underneath you or snow, it can be very, very different.
Yeah, certainly can. Fraser, great to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.